What if the Hashira had their memories from the beginning? Now, you guys voted for this on my newest post on my YouTube channel, and while you're there voting for the next video, make sure to like and subscribe. But anyway, for this what if, there are so many things that could change and completely mess up the entire timeline, so we basically have to build everything back up again. To make things easier, we're going to have all the Hashira regain their memories right when Tanjiro's story begins. So Tanjiro still goes out to sell coal. At that exact moment, all of the Hashira suddenly regain their memories from the original timeline. Giyu immediately realizes what's about to happen. He knows Tanjiro's family is going to be attacked by Muzan, and he immediately starts heading toward Tanjiro's home to try to stop it. The problem is that Giyu is many miles away. He's obviously a Hashira, so he can move extremely fast, but he still can't get there instantly. Meanwhile, everything with Tanjiro happens the same until nighttime, when he stays at the old man's house because he's warned about demons roaming around at night. Eventually, Giyu arrives and finds Tanjiro. Tanjiro obviously doesn't understand what's happening, but Giyu knows exactly what's about to happen to his family. The two sit down and Giyu tries to explain the situation. Of course, Tanjiro immediately wants to go save his family, but Giyu knows that Muzan is there. Giyu already knows that he has almost no chance of defeating Muzan alone, but knowing exactly what is about to happen to Tanjiro's family, he can't just stand back and let them die. Even if it costs him his life, Giyu decides that he has to at least try to save them. He knows Tanjiro can't do anything against him, so Giyu tells Tanjiro to stay back while he goes to the house himself. None of the other Hashira can make it there in time because they're simply too far away, so Giyu has to face Muzan alone. And even with all of his memories from the original timeline, Giyu is nowhere near strong enough to defeat Muzan by himself. He tries to fight him anyway, but Muzan easily defeats Giyu, and Tanjiro's family still suffers the same fate as the original timeline. Except this time, the timeline has already taken its first massive loss. Giyu is gone. Now, I remember watching another video about this from a YouTube channel called The Jaegerists, and they said Giyu wouldn't do this and made a whole different timeline where Giyu never goes to fight Muzan. But here's the thing, the Hashira's job, no matter what, is to protect people and stop demons, even if that means sacrificing themselves. That's exactly what Giyu would do. Rengoku would do the same thing, and I think basically any Hashira would do it. So before Giyu leaves to face Muzan, he tells Tanjiro everything he remembers about Tanjiro's journey. He tells him about sun breathing, the selfless state, and basically most of the important things Tanjiro learned throughout the original timeline. So Tanjiro already has a little bit of insight into his future journey. After Giyu leaves, Tanjiro eventually heads up the mountain to see if Giyu was able to save his family. But when he gets there, Giyu is lying there with the rest of his family. So obviously Giyu didn't win. Tanjiro still finds Nezuko turning into a demon and takes her with him. But this time, Muzan is way more on guard. Why would a Hashira randomly show up at some family's house in the middle of nowhere? Muzan knows there has to be something special about this family, but at this point, he doesn't know exactly what it is. Anyway, Tanjiro still eventually goes to Urokodaki, but this time, his training is completely different. Because of everything Giyu told him, Tanjiro already knows that the Hinokami Kagura is connected to sun breathing. So instead of focusing completely on water breathing, Tanjiro starts trying to learn and master sun breathing from the beginning. Of course, this isn't easy. Tanjiro's body isn't strong enough yet to continuously use sun breathing, and he doesn't know every part of it, especially the 13th form, which isn't something he can simply learn without understanding how all 12 forms connect together. But Tanjiro still trains his body and starts learning as much of sun breathing as he possibly can. By the time he reaches final selection, Tanjiro is already using sun breathing and takes down the hand demon. After that, Tanjiro and Nezuko begin traveling. He still meets Zenitsu and Inosuke, and most of the early missions are much easier because Tanjiro already has access to sun breathing. But the first really massive changes to this timeline happen once they reach Mount Naragumo. Now basically everything happens exactly the same, but with Tanjiro using sun breathing. Zenitsu is still too scared to go up the mountain, so later he fights the spider demon and defeats it. Meanwhile, Inosuke and Tanjiro go up the mountain and everything happens basically the same until Tanjiro gets blasted away by the father demon and ends up fighting Rui. Now this time, Tanjiro is using a technique that he's way more used to, so his sword never breaks. But Tanjiro is still having a really hard fight. He's still a fairly new demon slayer, and even though he knows sun breathing, his body can barely handle using the forms. Eventually, Tanjiro is pushed to the brink of death while trying to protect Nezuko. But instead of unlocking sun breathing like he did in the original timeline, Tanjiro unlocks the Demon Slayer mark. With the Demon Slayer mark boosting his strength and speed, Tanjiro finally defeats Rui by himself. Then the Hashira arrive. Since Giyu is gone in this timeline, a different Hashira has to take his place on this mission. So I think Shinobu and Sanemi would be the ones to arrive, but because all the Hashira have their memories from the original timeline, neither of them tries to kill Nezuko. That also means there's really no reason for the original Hashira meeting to happen. All of the Hashira Hashira already know who Tanjiro and Nezuko are, and they already trust them because they remember everything from the original timeline. The only thing they're really wondering about is what happened between Tanjiro and Giyu. At the beginning of the story, Tanjiro doesn't know anything about their memories, so he explains everything from his perspective. He tells them how Giyu found him that night, told him about sun breathing and parts of his future journey, and then went alone to try to save his family. The Hashira already know Giyu is gone, but now they finally know exactly what happened. From there, instead of having the Hashira meeting, everyone basically talks about what's coming next, and now they're preparing for the Mugen train mission. Tanjiro doesn't really need to go this time because he already knows about sun breathing and where it came from. If he has any questions for Rengoku, he can just ask him before the mission. More importantly, the Hashira already know exactly what's waiting for them on the Mugen train. By this point, they've already told Ubuyashiki everything they remember from the original timeline. So Ubuyashiki, who's already an amazing leader, has an insane advantage in this timeline because he basically knows what's going to happen before it happens. Because of that, there's no way he's sending Rengoku alone. Rengoku still goes to the Mugen train because he was originally assigned to the mission, but this time, Gyomei and Sanemi go with him as backup. I was thinking about Giyu because his defensive water breathing would be extremely useful against Akaza, but since Giyu is gone, Sanemi takes his place, so while Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke stay behind and continue training, Rengoku, Gyomei, and Sanemi head to the Mugen train. This time, they already know about Enmu's dream trap, so they don't fall for it. The three Hashira easily defeat Lower Moon 1, and with Gyomei, Sanemi, and Rengoku protecting everyone, the train doesn't even derail this time, but they know what's coming next. Rengoku remembers exactly where Akaza appeared in the original timeline, so the three Hashira wait for him. Akaza still tries to launch his surprise attack, but this time, they're ready for him. Rengoku, Gyomei, and Sanemi immediately start fighting Akaza together, forcing him to take the battle seriously right from the beginning. And remember, Tanjiro has already awakened the Demon Slayer mark. That means the conditions are now there for the other Hashira to awaken their own marks when they're pushed hard enough. Rengoku is probably the first one to awaken his Demon Slayer mark during the battle against Akaza, then Gyomei and Sanemi eventually awaken theirs as the fight gets more intense. Now Akaza is fighting the strongest Hashira, the second strongest Hashira, and one of the most skilled Hashira at the same time, with all three of them using Demon Slayer marks. There are basically two ways to defeat Akaza. You either overcome his compass needle with something like the Selfless State, or you completely overpower him. And this trio can definitely overpower him. Even if Akaza fights at full strength, I think Gyomei, Sanemi, and Rengoku together with their Demon Slayer marks would eventually take him down. Akaza is finally defeated, meaning Rengoku survives the Mugen train in this timeline. Afterward, all three Hashira return to the Demon Slayer Corps, and with Upper Moon 3 now gone, Muzan calls another Upper Moon meeting. The rankings shift to fill Akaza's empty position, while Kokushibo and Doma remain Upper Moon 1 and Upper Moon 2. Now with that, Tanjiro goes back to training, and the next mission he would probably be involved in is the Entertainment District. This time, there's one huge factor that changes everything. Tengen already knows for sure that Upper Moon 6 is there, and he remembers everything that happened in the original timeline. So he tells the Hashira and Ubuyashiki exactly what happened and what they're going to be dealing with. Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu are still put on the mission at the beginning, mainly because they need them to dress up as girls and help find Upper Moon 6. But this time, Tengen isn't the only Hashira being sent. Obanai is obviously going since he was originally sent as backup in the original timeline, but he arrived too late. This time, he's sent from the beginning alongside Tengen. And since this is an Upper Moon, they probably want even more backup. Rengoku, Gyomei, and Sanemi are still recovering from their fight against Akaza. Mitsuri and Muchiro probably have their own reasons for needing to visit the Swordsmith village soon, so that really only leaves Shinobu. So Shinobu goes on the mission with Tengen and Obanai. Everything at the beginning happens basically the same, but the Hashira are more split up throughout the Entertainment District, because they already know what's coming. When Tanjiro starts fighting Daki by himself, Obanai already knows what's happening and goes to help him. Meanwhile, Shinobu, Tengen, Inosuke, and Zenitsu arrive later because they were dealing with the other half of Daki, the Belt Demon. Once Gyutaro finally comes out, they split into two teams. Shinobu, Inosuke, and Zenitsu fight Daki, while Tengen, Obanai, and Tanjiro fight Gyutaro. And this makes the entire battle way easier. Shinobu probably doesn't unlock her Demon Slayer mark because Daki simply isn't strong enough to push her that far. With Inosuke and Zenitsu helping her, they should be able to take Daki down without too much trouble. Against Gyutaro, Tengen and Obanai are a completely different problem. During the fight, I could see both of them being pushed hard enough to unlock their Demon Slayer marks. Tanjiro probably barely even needs to help. He would mainly step in if Tengen or Obanai gets into serious trouble. invincible. But with Tengen and Obanai working together, Tengen never needs to fake his death, and he never loses his arm. Obanai is also extremely strong, and his serpent breathing makes his attacks incredibly difficult to read, which would make things even worse for Gyutaro. Eventually, Shinobu, Inosuke, and Zenitsu cut off Daki's head, while Tengen, Obanai, and Tanjiro cut off Gyutaro's head at the same time. Upper Moon 6 is officially defeated. Tengen and Obanai are still affected by Gyutaro's poison, so Nezuko uses her blood demon art to burn the poison away and save them. But compared to the original timeline, everyone is in much better condition. Tengen still has both of his arms, Obanai has now awakened his Demon Slayer mark, and another Upper Moon has been defeated. With the Entertainment District mission complete, everyone heads back to the Demon Slayer core. Now everybody already knows what happens in the Swordsmith village arc, so this time they plan the whole thing out beforehand. They've already defeated Upper Moon 6 and Upper Moon 3, and because they sent way more Hashira to the Entertainment District, the damage there was way less than in the original timeline. By this point, the group that defeated Akaza is already healed up, and Muchiro and Mitsuri are heading to the Swordsmith village. But Ubuyashiki knows exactly what's going to happen there. This is where all of their Nichiren swords are made, and the last thing they can allow is for Muzan to destroy the entire village. Especially now that the Demon Slayers have already defeated multiple Upper Moons, they know Muzan is going to want to hit them back hard. So there's no time to waste. They double the amount of Demon Slayers guarding the Swordsmith village and send every available Hashira there to protect it. Muchiro and Mitsuri still go there for their own reasons, while Tanjiro goes to get his new sword and trains with the Yoriichi doll. But this time, when Upper Moon 4 and Upper Moon 5 arrive, they can't sneak into the village as easily. Every Hashira is already there and on high alert. Now the battles are going to be split up like this. First, we have Upper Moon 5, Gyoko. Muchiro already remembers exactly where Gyoko is going to appear, so he goes there alongside Obanai and Sanemi. And this fight is honestly pretty easy. Muchiro defeated Gyoko by himself in the original timeline after unlocking his Demon Slayer mark, but this time he has Obanai and Sanemi helping him, and both of them already have their Demon Slayer marks. Muchiro probably doesn't even unlock his mark because he doesn't need to. Obanai and Sanemi do most of the work because they're on a completely different level with their marks activated, and with Muchiro helping them, Gyoko gets defeated pretty easily. This also means the swordsmiths in that area are protected, and Tanjiro's new sword can still be completed. Now we have the bigger fight against Upper Moon 4 Hantengu. For this fight, we have Mitsuri, Gyomei, Rengoku, Tengen, and Shinobu alongside Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Genya. Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Genya mainly stay back as support, making sure none of the swordsmiths get hurt while the Hashira handle the main battle. Once all of Hantengu's emotion clones combine into the main emotion clone, Gyomei, Tengen, and Rengoku take it on. And remember, all three of them already have their Demon Slayer marks. So Hantengu is dealing with the strongest Hashira alongside two other marked Hashira, all at the same time. Meanwhile, Mitsuri, Shinobu, and Tanjiro go after Hantengu's real body. Once they finally find him, Tanjiro gets the final attack and cuts off Hantengu's head. Nezuko still becomes immune to sunlight because I think that's gonna happen one way or another in this timeline, so that ends the Swordsmith village arc. Upper Moon 4 and Upper Moon 5 are both defeated, the Swordsmith village barely suffers any damage, and almost all of the swordsmiths survive. At this point, the only Hashira who haven't unlocked the Demon Slayer mark are Mitsuri, Shinobu, and Muchiro, because none of them were pushed far enough to awaken it, and of course, Giyu is already gone. But now we get into the Hashira training arc, and this time, they're gonna plan things way differently. Hey guys, only 7.4% of you guys are subscribed, so make sure to like and subscribe because we're trying to hit 50,000 subscribers, and let's get back into the video. So when the Hashira training arc starts, all of them know they need to prepare for the fights they're going to be facing. Since they already have their future memories, they already know exactly who they're fighting in the Infinity Castle. Rengoku is the only one who doesn't have those future memories since he died against Akaza in the original timeline. So the other Hashira constantly tell him what's going to happen and explain the upper moons he's gonna be facing. The only major change with training the regular Demon Slayers is that Rengoku replaces Muchiro. Rengoku already has experience training people, so he would be a way better trainer, while Muchiro can focus completely on preparing himself. But the Hashira's personal training changes a lot. Gyomei, Sanemi, Genya, and Muchiro train way harder than they did in the original timeline because they know exactly how terrifying Upper Moon 1 is. They already remember Kokushibo's presence and abilities, so they mentally prepare prepare themselves and train specifically to counter his attacks. This time, they also decide to bring Rengoku with them. In the original timeline, they basically defeated Kokushibo by the skin of their teeth, so adding another marked Hashira gives them a much better chance. Then we have the Upper Moon to fight against Doma. Shinobu already knows what happened in the original timeline, so she prepares a much stronger poison specifically designed for Doma. Inosuke and Kanao also stay close to Shinobu because they know they're supposed to be part of this fight, and since Akaza is already dead, Tanjiro doesn't need to fight Upper Moon 3 with Giyu. So Tanjiro joins Shinobu, Kanao, and Inosuke against Doma. Then we have the other matchups. Zenitsu still fights Kaigaku by himself. Mitsuri, Obanai, and Yushiro still go after Nakime to take control of the Infinity Castle. And if the Kokushibo squad somehow finishes their battle before the Doma fight is over, any surviving Hashira will immediately go help Tanjiro and Shinobu. So everybody knows exactly what they're doing once they enter the Infinity Castle. Now, nobody tries to stop Ubuyashiki from sacrificing himself. They already know this is what he wants to do for the Demon Slayers and for his family, giving everyone else the best possible chance to finally defeat Muzan. So everything happens basically the same. Muzan arrives, Ubuyashiki sacrifices himself, and everyone gets dropped into the Infinity Castle. But this time, everybody is completely locked in and knows exactly where they need to go. Obanai, Mitsuri, and Yushiro versus Nakime happens basically the same. Zenitsu versus Kaigaku also happens the same, with Zenitsu defeating him using 7th form. Upper Moon 3 is already gone, so now we get to the Doma fight. This fight happens completely differently. Shinobu doesn't need to sacrifice herself this time because she already knows that her normal poison wasn't enough in the original timeline. So before entering the Infinity Castle, she creates a much stronger poison specifically designed to weaken Doma without needing to sacrifice herself. Tanjiro takes the lead in the fight because at this point, he's extremely strong. He's been practicing sun breathing since the beginning of the story. He has the Demon Slayer mark, and he's probably getting close to unlocking the selfless state. Kanao and Inosuke back him up while Shinobu uses her speed and poison against Doma. So basically, you have Shinobu, Tanjiro fighting at around Hashira level, and Kanao and Inosuke together adding even more pressure. They definitely don't defeat Doma easily. It's still an extremely difficult fight, but eventually, with Shinobu's stronger poison weakening him and Tanjiro constantly pressuring him with sun breathing, they finally overwhelm Doma and defeat Upper Moon 2 without Shinobu having to die. Now we have the Kokushibo fight. This one happens way differently because everybody arrives together. Muichiro never has to fight Kokushibo alone, meaning he never loses his hand at the beginning. Yomei and Sanemi immediately take the front lines because they're the two strongest Hashira. Muichiro and Rengoku fight alongside them while Genya stays farther back and waits for his opportunity to use Kokushibo's Blood Demon art against him. The biggest advantage they have is that they already know everything Kokushibo can do. They know his attacks, they know how powerful his final form is, and most importantly, they already know what they need to do to defeat him. So when Kokushibo finally goes into his strongest form, nobody is caught off guard like they were in the original timeline. With Gyomei and Sanemi leading the attack, Rengoku and Muichiro backing them up, and Genya using his Blood Demon art from behind, they finally take down Kokushibo. Kokushibo remembers Yoriichi, realizes what he became while chasing strength, and finally lets himself die. With all three Upper Moon now gone, Muzan eventually realizes that Yushiro has taken control of Nakime and the Infinity Castle. Muzan kills Nakime before Yushiro can completely use the castle against him, forcing Yushiro to get everyone out. And now, with almost every major fighter surviving the Infinity Castle, we move into the final battle. Now with that, the Sunrise Countdown arc is basically way easier in this timeline since the Hashira are way more prepared and trained. And Tanjiro has been using sun breathing since the beginning. Tanjiro finally unlocks the selfless state and starts helping all the Hashira in the main battle against Muzan. And remember, basically everybody survived the Infinity Castle, so all the Hashira start fighting Muzan together, with everyone who has the Demon Slayer mark activating it and going all out. Tanjiro eventually gets a past memory from Yoriichi that helps him understand the 13th form of sun breathing, allowing him to put even more pressure on Muzan. But the biggest advantage they have is their memories. They already know what's going to happen when Muzan is about to unleash that huge blast that took out almost everyone in the original timeline. The Hashira already know it's coming. They dodge the attack and immediately continue pressuring Muzan, never giving him the opportunity to escape. They keep fighting all the way until sunrise. A lot of the Hashira are still injured because they're fighting Muzan, but nobody is nearly as badly injured as they were in the original timeline. Eventually the sun sun rises and Muzan is finally defeated. So in the end, the only Hashira who was lost early on was Giyu. Everybody else gets to live a much happier life after Muzan's defeat. Of course, there's still the problem with the Demon Slayer mark. Everyone who awakened the mark will probably die before or around the age of 25, and since Gyomei is already past 25, he probably dies shortly after the final battle, just like Kokushibo warned him in the original timeline. But even with that, this is still a much happier ending for the Demon Slayer Corps, with way more people surviving the final battle. Anyway, I hope you guys really liked this video. Make sure to like and subscribe because we're trying to hit 50,000 subscribers. And make sure to go watch What If Tanjiro Had Gojo's abilities, because that video is really cool, or go watch What If Deku Was in Demon Slayer. Make sure to click on one of the videos on your screen right now.